So, selling sites. Let's talk about the ethics of having to take care of pets. Might just be something that is causing a lot of strain on your mental well-being. For me personally, having pets has actually really helped my mental health. YouTube really encourages us that like more animals is cooler. Pet YouTubers who just have like 40 pets. But the reality of the situation is there are too many pets out there. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in today and watching this video. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about rehoming pets. Any of you guys who are in a place where you're starting to feel uncomfortable, or maybe that you're not able to provide your pet with exactly what they need and you're struggling about, is it okay to have let myself get in this position? How am I going to get myself out of this position? And dealing with all the like shame and guilt around realizing that maybe you aren't quite giving your pet exactly what they need, and what kind of reasons are there for needing to rehome an animal, and also some helpful practical advice on exactly how to go about doing that. So no, this isn't some strange way of me telling you guys that I'm actually trying to rehome my pets. I am in a position where I'm able to take care of all the pets that I own at the moment, but in the past I have had to rehome pets before. As some of you guys know, I did used to have a snake called Elvis. My dad bought him for me when I was 9 years old. I had him for about 10 years and I loved him. Just a disclaimer for you guys, as you guys know, live in the UK, so the only advice I can really give you guys is about rehoming animals in the UK, but if you don't live in the UK, then hopefully some of this information might still apply to you. Also, I've never had anything like a dog or a cat or a horse, or only really have experience with like exotic animals in cages. Okay, so let's just get straight into the video. So why would I need to rehome my pets? There are many reasons for this. All reasons are totally valid. You don't need to feel shameful or guilty. Situations change, things happen out of our control, and they put us in situations that we couldn't have foreshadowed before we got the animal. Smudge, excuse me, I'm trying to film a video. Are you done? Thank you. Sorry about that. For example, financial issues. The right quality bedding is too expensive, their food is too expensive, vet bills are too expensive. You need to find a vet beforehand and know how much that vet is going to cost. But if something crazy out of the blue happens, like all 5 of your rats get ill at the same time, that's definitely something to think about. Another thing as well is you might be struggling to provide the appropriate amount of attention to your animal. It depends on what animal you've got, of course. If you have something like a bird or like rats or ferrets, these animals need a lot of attention, whereas things like hamsters and reptiles and amphibians and stuff don't need as much attention, and your pet is sort of spending a lot of its time on its own in the cage. That might be a good reason to rehome the pet. Your mental health, you might be really struggling to deal with the workload or deal with the stresses in your life, and having to take care of pets might just be something that is causing a lot of strain on your mental well-being. That is totally valid and nothing to be ashamed of at all. For me personally, having pets has actually really helped my mental health, as in if I'm feeling like I'm not able to get up in the morning and brush my teeth and do all of the things for myself, at least I know that I have to get up and I have to clean out the rats, or I have to free range the rats, and that kind of gets me into a good pattern. But that's not the same for everyone. Another reason is your housing situation might have changed. Could also be that you're living with your parents and your parents have suddenly decided that they're not comfortable with the animals anymore, or you have to move out, or you're moving in somewhere else where you can't have pets. Another reason is your animal could be extremely aggressive. It could have a really bad temperament. You could be feeling like you're out of your depth with being able to deal with the animal itself. This animal, like I said, is alive, and the point about being alive is free will, right? So it might not always act exactly the way that you want it to, but that's not to devalue how difficult it is as an owner to have an animal that is just so, you can't handle it, it's too much, it's too aggressive, you don't know what to do, and it's causing like a bit of a black hole in your life. And I know that when I rehomed my snake, I still deal with feelings of guilt and stress from having made that decision, even though I know that that was the right decision. Instead of letting the pet take up this space in your life that you can't give, and let the pet become neglected because you can't deal with the fact that maybe I got myself a little bit too in deep here. The right thing to do is to just be responsible and think about what's better for the pet and just do it. So I'm just going to tell you guys quickly about my rehoming story, about what I went through when I rehomed my pet. So he was a corn snake. I had him since I was 9 and I rehomed him in 2019. He was in quite a decently sized cage. In terms of the required minimum, it was definitely above the required minimum for a corn snake and a lot bigger than what a lot of other people keep their corn snakes in. But I personally was becoming increasingly more uncomfortable with the situation that he was in, as in the cage size. I actually think with certain species that it should be considered a lot higher than what they're in. And I was just becoming more and more uncomfortable and and I was avoiding him and I wasn't getting him out as much. A bigger size cage was going to be around 300 to 400 pounds and I just couldn't afford it. And I was just thinking, am I just going to leave him in this cage for the rest of his life for him to just sort of live a half life? I felt like he needed to be somewhere where the person was a lot more able to make him a priority and make sure that he did have a really great life for the rest of his life and a bigger cage and things like that. When I tell you I loved that snake, guys, I fucking loved that snake. I still think about him all the time. I miss him so much. So what I did is I basically called around a whole bunch of sanctuaries and rescues in my area to try and find somewhere that would take him. After like a while, maybe about 3 weeks, I finally found somewhere that was willing to take him. Met her at a train station and said goodbye to my baby, my absolute love of my life. I miss him so much, guys. I definitely don't regret it. As much as I miss him, I'm so happy that he's able to live out his retirement in the best place possible. So yeah, basically that is the rehoming story of Elvis. Now, in my mind, there are about 3 different ways you can go about rehoming a pet. Option number 1 is you could give them to a friend or a family member or a neighbor. I do actually think that this is quite a good option and an option that a lot of people forget about and don't explore. Option number 2 is you could advertise them on a selling site. I talk about these selling sites a lot in my YouTube videos. In the UK, these are things like Gumtree, Spock, Pets for Homes, Pre-Loved. Or final option, and probably the best one, is to try and contact some sanctuaries and some rescues in your area and try and see if they will intake your pet. So selling sites. Let's talk about the ethics of putting your animals up for adoption or to sell them on a selling site. No doubt, this is probably one of the most popular ways to do it. You just take a picture of your pet, bang, put it on one of these sites, write a little bio. Someone messages you being like, yeah, I'll take it. And then you meet up and do the exchange with the animal. It is definitely not the safest option. Me personally, I would never ever put my animals up on one of these selling sites for various reasons. Rodents are at risk on these sites because a lot of people like to buy feeder rodents from these sites and pretend that they want to keep the pet when actually they're just going to feed it to their snakes. This doesn't just happen with rats and mice, this happens with hamsters and other animals as well. It's not really ethical, in my opinion, to take someone's beloved pet and just kill it, basically. Because the whole process is so easy and quick, it can attract a lot of dangerous people. So if you think about it, if I was wanting to do something bad to an animal like a dog or a cat, I would go on one of these sites, just type in dog, see the advert for the dog, and bang, you have a dog. It's really not the best way to ensure the safety of your animal, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it somewhat safely. Don't put them on a site that is like a general selling site, as in like Gumtree or Spock sells like all things like furniture and clothes. Put your animal on something like Pets for Homes, which is just about pet adoption. While this doesn't guarantee the safety of the animal, it makes it less likely that people will impulse buy because they'll only be on the site if they're looking specifically for pets. They can't just be browsing on anything and then being like, oh, hamster. Another way that you can make things a lot more safe is ask a million questions. I would recommend that you ask for cage size, you ask to see pictures of their house, you ask financial questions, ask about longevity as well, how long Are you able to take care of this animal? If you ask a whole bunch of questions and someone is completely more than willing to send you pictures of their cage, tell you all the information about how they're going to plan on looking after the animal and everything that you should be asking as an owner, they're going to be a lot more reliable than someone who gets offended and defensive once you ask them what kind of cage they're planning on putting your pet in. Never feel afraid or bad to turn someone down. So as I would definitely advise against this route, it's definitely something that is possible. I'm not here to tell you guys that you can and can't do it. And then the final option, like I said, is to try and find a rescue or a sanctuary that is willing to take your pet. If the reasons for rehoming is more like I can't provide it what I think it needs, then I would definitely recommend trying to find a sanctuary or a rescue. That is the best place that they could possibly be, with the people who are most willing to go as far as they can to help your animal. But don't get me wrong, it is hard. It's probably the hardest one out of the three. I think I called up 10 plus different places, got loads and loads of people saying no. I got a lot of quite rude people actually, because I did end up calling some places that weren't reptile sanctuaries, that were just animal sanctuaries. What kind of pet is it? And you're like, oh, it's a snake. Oh, no, we don't do that here. It's only fluffy, cute animals here. It's actually quite rude when someone insults your pet. Like, you think, fine, you don't have to like snakes. That's totally okay. But when someone's like, oh, that's so gross. Like, it's actually an insult to do and say that. A lot of pets in the pet industry at the moment, especially popular pets, there are too many in supply that aren't meeting the demand. When a pet becomes popular, the things like pet mills and breeders and stuff go crazy and like start producing as many of these animals to try and get as much money as they can out of the situation. A lot of them ending up in really bad positions and really bad situations because there's just too many of them. And a lot of sanctuaries and rescues who are trying to help these animals become completely overrun. When I was trying to rehome my snake, and a lot of places told me that they just flat out don't take corn snakes anymore. I remember I talked to one place that had about 90 snakes, and I think like 50 of them were corn snakes. The supply and demand of these animals is very, very concerning. In my opinion, I think if an animal needs help, who cares what species it is? It's the ones that need the help the most, which are the ones that should be focused on. Like hamsters, for example, that's another example of an animal that is high supply and not enough demand. So basically my advice with the rescue or sanctuary is do as much research as possible. I spent about 3 weeks doing research. I didn't stop. Call up a billion different places. I live in London, obviously, and the amount of pets that are just floating around this area is kind of ridiculous. So all sanctuaries and rescues in my area are just guaranteed to be overrun, but it's not the same everywhere else in the world. The main reason I'm trying to do this video is to try and take away the guilt and shame that a lot of people have, realizing that they can't take care of their animal. Especially YouTube really encourages us that like more animals is cooler. I watch so many pet YouTubers who just have like 40 pets. I struggle with impulse control myself when it comes to buying pets, and that's why I think it's very important to normalize dealing with the guilt and the shame of making that decision, saying goodbye to your pet. Is basically it from me today. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, maybe learned something from it. Please comment down below any comments that you have. Like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.